This is a video I actually never wanted to make in many ways. When I talk to Palestinians and Arabs generally around the world, I often get the sense that they believe that the extraordinary solidarity shown to them by the Irish public is also the stance of the Irish establishment. And a large part of me was quite happy for them to believe that. I mean, as we all know in Ireland, with notable exceptions, Colin Sheridan's extraordinary work in the Irish Examiner being one that always comes to my mind, the Irish media has largely printed unqualified Zionist propaganda for the last year and a half. And I often wouldn't share that stuff because as a proud Irishman, it's embarrassing. But when a Turkish film crew recently asked me if I, for instance, was celebrated because my sketches about Israel-Palestine have gone all around the world, I had to laugh. I was like, in terms of the Irish media, I am a pariah. And I thought, it's time to call some of this stuff out. So without further ado, here's a year and a half of genocide, by the way, in the media life of a pro-Palestine activist in Solidarity Central Ireland. In October 2023, Jennifer Horgan, writing in the Irish Examiner in a piece entitled Stop Glorifying War, criticised me and actor Liam Cunningham for, and strap yourself in for this, making too many comparisons between the Irish and Palestinian fight and struggle against colonial oppression. You know the thing that there are several books about, the thing that like 4 or 5 international crews just that I know of are currently shooting documentaries about, the thing that as an Irish person you're like definitely going to be asked first when you attend any pro-Palestine event in the world anywhere. I'm apparently engaging in romantic camaraderie by reminding my Palestinian brothers and sisters of the fact that Irish fought and won their partial independence from colonial rule, and that I believe that is also Palestine's destiny. Jennifer would prefer that the pro-Palestine movement did a little bit more chanting for peace and a little less shouting about resistance. Fair. I mean, there's nothing like your people being mass murdered and systematically starved to death to whet the appetite for a rousing rendition of John and Yoko's Give Peace a Chance, eh? March 2024, and Mary Leyland, writing in the Irish Times, dedicated a large chunk of a review of one of my plays too, criticising me for waving a Palestine flag at the end of the performance. You know, as artists had been doing for kind of months at that stage because of the genocide. And just a reminder, now this was at the end of the show, like lights up, people standing, getting ready to go home. I didn't break the fourth wall or anything going, to be or... Come here lads, Israel are some shower psycho bastards, aren't they? May 2024, and myself and the filmmaker Sean Murray were excoriated in the Belfast Telegraph for attending a Gaza-focused media event in Tehran. The journalist Sam McBride wrote emotively about human rights abuses in Iran and verbally spanked us for our lack of moral judgment. Suitably chastened, I went back to read Sam's no doubt long history of sticking up for human rights in Iran, as surely this was a topic very, very close to his heart and not just a cynical opportunity for political point scoring. Recently, the Irish Independent got a retired lad, Frank Coughlan, a guy who used to troll me on Twitter for about like 3 or 4 years, so much so that I had to block him, out of his comfy chair in his slippers to write a hit piece on me travelling to Lebanon to attend the funeral of Hassan Nasrallah. Frank begins his piece by describing my early work as Anglophobic but harmless. What? Why are you like this? Frank goes on to describe himself as an adult in the room, and that I, and I think pretty much everyone on the left, are stupid. Smarty Frankie Pants, of course, recently predicted that Kneecap would never get out of Ireland. Frank concludes his swan song by saying that he prefers Ukraine marches to Palestine marches because they're less Marxist and a lot quieter. So guys, if you could all keep it down at this weekend's anti-genocide protests, that'd be great. Drum roll, please. But I have to say, guys, my absolute fave is Sally Hayden writing in the Irish Times a couple of weeks ago. I'm blessed here because, again, the vitriol was shared between me and another person, my friend Tara O'Grady. Now, Tara is a distinguished human rights defender spanning nearly 2 decades, guys. I've never seen an Irish person in the Middle East more adored and respected because of the fearlessness and thoroughness of her advocacy. But Sally writes that she's a self-described human rights defender. I think somebody's a self-described journalist. Who's with me, guys? Sally alerts the Irish public in the Irish Times that Hezbollah is designated a terrorist group in not Ireland, actually, but in Britain and the US. 2 countries I'm sure you'd have to agree that are paragons of moral military virtue. Sally takes exception to me, a freelance self-employed artist, trying to make a living by having a Patreon account, salaciously noting that I accept donations on my social media pages. Weird that the Irish Times would have a problem with somebody trying to get paid for work online when they've just asked me to pay a subscription fee to read this tabloid-esque mess. The article weirdly omits the fact that Hassan Nasrallah's funeral wasn't some sort of grubby gathering for extremists, but rather the largest state funeral in the history of Lebanon, attended by around 1.4 million people across the political spectrum, including many foreign dignitaries. The article includes the fact that sadly one Irish peacekeeper was allegedly killed by Hezbollah, but doesn't include the fact that at least 20 Irish peacekeepers were definitely killed by Israel, the country whose war crimes I've been reporting on all week in my videos. What is it that Noam Chomsky calls it again? Propaganda by omission? The basic gist of Sally's article anyway, guys, is that I seem to kind of just love terrorism, mostly because it's such a cash cow, and there now I have to hand it to her. I mean, who can forget that memorable piece of advice in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich? Make sure you publicly endorse Hezbollah. Now, you might say, yeah, you're being slated in the Irish media, but I bet you've got just countless opportunities to defend yourself and, much more importantly, to speak up for the victims of Israeli war crimes. Well, you might be surprised to know that even though I've been asked to speak about Palestine on Al Jazeera, I don't know how many times I've lost count, Turkish media, in Bahrain, in Iran, I don't know how many times. I was on a Swedish radio station, live television in Lebanon, Iraq. I've never once been asked to speak about Palestine or Israel on Irish national media. And in fact, one time when I was plugging a gig, I was specifically asked not to bring it up. So, Irish media, my conscience is clear. I know why I got into this type of work. I am passionate about humanizing the people that you just love to dehumanize. And you pontificate about the scourge of online trolling when you smugly troll activists like me for having the temerity to challenge your Orientalist, boring Western narrative. And keep in mind, again, I'm not an elected representative. I don't work for anyone. I can't get any work in Ireland since October 7th. But keep up your hit pieces if you wish. They provide me with great content. But wouldn't it be a better use of your time to vilify the people committing war crimes as opposed to people protesting against said war crimes? You know, as I've said before, and I'll make it crystal clear again, nobody pays for my solidarity. But I think it's time that the Irish public and the world now learn who pays for your complicity.